Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Mark with Kurt Bjorklund.
In Mark chapter 2, we see these questions that are asked to Jesus, to his disciples from the Pharisees. And in verse 23 and following, we get the question of the Sabbath. One Sabbath, he was going through the grainfields, and as they were making their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, what are they doing? That's not lawful on the Sabbath." And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was in need and was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the bread of the presence, which was not lawful for the priests to eat. And he also gave it to all who were with him. And he said, the Sabbath was made for man, not the man for Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." The tendency for the moralist in us is to restrict rather than receive. Now, again, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that there is no standard, but do you see what Jesus is doing here? He and his disciples are recognizing that God didn't make the Sabbath so that we could feel good about ourselves by keeping a bunch of standards about it, but he created it so that people would be able to rest from their work and detach from all of the things that they normally do in order to celebrate God's bounty. And what he's doing is he's saying, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. That the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, meaning it's not about what you do, but it's about how God has structured things for your benefit. So what does all of this mean, this chapter, if we were to try to summarize its overarching message? I think the message here is that when you fall into your own moralistic, self-righteous sense, you will question the standing of other people rather than leaving that to God. You will try to restrict who is in and who is out, and even who judge who other people hang out with. You will be prone to a kind of air that says that there is a bigger need to perform than there is to celebrate. And you will try to restrict kind of what people do, including yourself, rather than focus on the gifts that God has given. Did you see how a Phariseistic approach to faith is destructive to your soul? It turns God into a taskmaster rather than a lover, a bridegroom, the one who gives Sabbath and something to celebrate. How different would Christianity be? How different would church be if every Christian had a mindset that said, God has done it through Jesus Christ, and I live in the reality of that, and I get to celebrate it in a myriad of ways, day after day after day, rather than Christianity means that I try harder to perform better and I keep failing. Again, I don't mean to imply there aren't standards, but what I want to do is say this text teaches us that when we make it all about our standards, that we're actually making it about our morality, not about the goodness and the beauty of who God is and what God has done. So today, what would it look like for you to celebrate the grace of God and to get off the treadmill of performance and moralism and Phariseeism?
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.